Good evening and happy Saturday night, Shavuot Tov. I hope you're all doing well. As you can see, I'm sitting here on my mirpesset. Just got back about an hour ago from my run tonight. Bit of running, lots of walking, 5K with my dear friend Michelle. And I wanted to come on here and tell you a bit about my story. And let me know where you're coming in from, where in the world you are coming in from. Let me know so I can give you a shout out. And if you're watching on the replay, hey Lynn, good evening. If you're on the replay, please let me know, type in encore. So, really interesting. I had a present from a friend, treats from England, and I opened them and they were like crisps. And my husband says, "Oh, you're going to put back all the weight that you lost," as in 75 kilos. Not going to happen. Because I don't really care if you put on the weight, because I love you anyway. Hey Rachel, Shavuot Tov, how are you? Love your hubs. No, he's just trying to be manipulative with how he said it. So, I actually met my husband when I was 75 kilos heavy, at my heaviest. And that was 2009, so 11 years ago. And I was at my heaviest, and I wasn't a very happy person. I was on the internet. I wasn't really looking for a husband at the time, but I found my dear husband, and sort of everything went from there. I was 27 when we met, and we dated for 2 years, and I lived and breathed my job in England. And then I was very lucky because my boss was based in Czech Republic, so I got to work remotely if I wanted. So I would travel to Israel, and we dated for 2 years. And then we met actually Purim 2.5 years before we got married, 2009. And on Purim 2011, he came to England and proposed to me, asked for my mum's permission to marry me. It wasn't a very romantic proposal, but he proposed, and then we spent the April Pesach looking for somewhere to get married in Israel, and we got married in September. I was still living in England at the time, and I made Aliyah in August 2011, 5 weeks before our wedding, and I had lost some weight. I think I was about 117 kilos at the time. I started with 154, and but I wasn't happy, and my wedding dress wasn't what I wanted, and I just wasn't a happy person. I had a cover, but I wasn't the person I was meant to be. We got married and got pregnant very quickly. It was very exciting, and our beautiful daughter Mayani was born a year later, actually a year to date from my hen weekend, so that was fun. Bit of a different weekend for that 27th of July, 1 year apart. And she was born, and she was like everything to me. Oh, she's still awake, she's coming out here. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Were your ears burning? And then I was a stay-at-home mummy, and I did some work online. Yeah, we've got people watching us, and no, don't pick your nails, that's really revolting. Sorry about that. I was a stay-at-home mummy, and I did some babysitting. Oh, sweet dreams. I did some babysitting, and I did lots of my online HR work, and then we decided we wanted to have more kids, and she was 2 years old, and I wasn't getting pregnant. Then I found out that I was ovulating before my mikveh night, which meant that I was ovulating before I would be with my husband. So I went to see my naturopath, and she put me on some whole food capsules, which I took for 5 months, and then I got pregnant with my twins. And I had Anna, and I had the worst pregnancy ever. Literally, my daughter was 3 years old. She broke her leg just at the beginning of my pregnancy, and I was carrying her around with a cast on her leg, and she was starting gun. And then, thank God, I had a neighbor in my building who was like my savior, because she would go and pick up Mayan every single day from gun, we'd get her to gun, but often I had no energy, and I just didn't feel well. And my Annie didn't really have her mummy that year, and I was, pardon? When you started gun, you remember when mummy was always in bed and exhausted and didn't feel good? Do you remember?
No.
Oh, you don't remember? Well, that's good. She doesn't remember. So because I was having identical twins, I had to be checked every 2 weeks because to check that there wasn't twin-to-twin transfusion happening, which is when one twin steals the other. I can't see now. Sorry. When one twin steals the other twin's. Can you not touch it because you're like disturbing and people can't see me when you do that? When one twin steals the other twin's nutrients to grow well. So every 2 weeks I'd be checked, and they were due in May, and I knew that I would have to give birth by 37 weeks. And at about 35 weeks I started bleeding, and it was the week before Pesach. And I ended up in hospital, and I wouldn't let my husband leave my side because I was terrified that these babies were going to be born and taken away from me. I'm on live, I'm talking.
That is pretty.
Thank you. So I was terrified that my babies were going to be taken away from me, and that I'd been carrying for all this time, and they were mine, so why should they be taken away from me? So I made my husband stay with me, and thank God
why are you holding
because
that?
it's going to fall if I don't. So I made my husband stay, and we stayed there till literally Erev Pesach, when I could prove to them that I wasn't going to bleed out, and these babies were all right. And I remember doing a urine sample. They wanted me to do a pee test all day long for 1 day, and because I was so sick, I think in a day I must have drank like 3 liters of water, but I only peed out about 500 milliliters. It was really, really scary because I was literally just holding on to all the fluids. Literally my whole body was full of fluid, and I probably had preeclampsia, but because I am someone with low blood pressure, it was never diagnosed as that, and they just sent me home. So I went home for Pesach, and I felt grotty the whole time, and I was due to have the babies 6 days after Pesach, and I was moaning, and my mum was looking after me, and I was in pain. I could hardly walk. There's videos of me somewhere on Facebook, and I was just like, I just couldn't move. And 3 days, when I was 36 weeks and 3 days, which was a couple of days after Pesach, I was like, I've had enough. And my doctor sent me to the hospital and said to me, you know, you're not coming home, so get ready. And I went to the hospital, and they tried to send me home. I said, you're not sending me home because I can't physically carry these babies anymore. You're just gonna have to let me lie in bed here till you decide to take them out. And they were gonna take them out because Danielle, my oldest, was upside down. So as they were identical, they wouldn't do any turning, and I stupidly didn't contact the specialist I'd originally seen weeks earlier. So they agreed that they would give me a C-section on the 3rd of May, and I was originally due on the 5th of May. Not due, but I was going to have my C-section on the 5th of May, and the 3rd of May is my husband's birthday. So it was his 36th birthday, and the twins were born. And when the twins were born, the first one came out, and he wasn't crying, and he was very, very red, and they rushed him off and did whatever they had to do. And because they were twins, so they had 2 medical teams ready. So they took off the first baby, and then they took the second baby, and then because I had a C-section, they took me to the recovery suite. Now, normally you'll go into recovery for maybe 1-2 hours. They kept me there for 8 hours, and the reason they kept me there for 8 hours was because they were monitoring my the urine sac to see how much I was going to the bathroom, and I wasn't, because, as I said before, in a 24-hour period, I'd only peed out 500 milliliters. And they just didn't care. They just kept me there and kept me there and kept me there and kept me there. And I got more and more and more depressed. And I did have my phone with me. My husband had sent me with my phone. But I had told my husband he wasn't to leave the babies. So I'm lying there in tears because they won't let me out and they won't let me see my babies. And my husband's in 2 separate places in the hospital. He's in the Pagia, which is the NICU, because twin A, Danielle, was in the NICU. And twin B was in the Tinokia, the regular baby section. And there's me on the other side of the hospital, not being allowed to leave. And eventually, 8 hours later, I went ballistic. I was like, you have to let me go because I'm not going to pee anymore. I'm not going to pee anymore because my body is not working right. But you can see my body's working enough to let me go see my babies. So they took me to my babies. Well, they didn't take me to me. They took me to the room that I was going to be sleeping in. And my babies weren't there. And I was like devastated. And I started effing blinding. And all the nurse wanted was for me to have a shower. I'm like, I'm not having a shower. I want to see my babies. I don't care about the shower. I'm fine. Just let me have my babies. So eventually they let me have my baby, Benjamin, who was twin B. They brought him to me, and I was like bawling my eyes out. And then I think, I can't remember if he stayed with my husband or what, but I then went upstairs to the Tinokia, to the NICU to see my other baby. And my other baby had tubes attached to him. And I picked him up and I was just devastated. I was like, what the hell? And my baby wasn't even a bad way. I don't know how these amazing mummies and twin mummies deal with having their babies in the NICU for more than a day, because I was a nervous wreck and I couldn't cope. And then they let me go back. Then they took me back. But the next time they took me to the NICU, they wouldn't let me go in a wheelchair. They made me walk there, and I nearly collapsed on the floor because I wasn't in a well state at all. And my whole experience of my twin birth was nothing like the birth with my daughter, where I had her naturally. With my twins, it was just horrendous. And I stayed in the hospital from that Tuesday to the Sunday, and then I went home with the babies. And the babies weren't feeding right, but they sent me home and they told me what to do and everything. And I was at home, and that was the Sunday. And my friends had come home to my house to set up my cot for me, because I had a special outreach cot that like linked to my bed. And I went home, and I was at home for 11 days. And then on the Saturday night, the second Saturday night I was at home, I started bleeding. It was like this. Psh! It was like literally like there was suddenly like a water pipe exploded, and I felt blood. I was like, oh my God. And then it stopped, and I went to have a shower, and near calls Maccabi, and they said, oh, it's fine. If it stopped, just don't worry. So the next morning on the Sunday, which meant they were 12 days old, I had an appointment with their doctor because they had tongue ties. And I took them to the doctor for their tongue ties, and I decided afterwards that I was going to go to Markaz Beauty Shah, which was the women's clinic around the corner that I had been to every week to check on my babies when I was pregnant. So I went around the corner, and I asked them, please can you check that there's nothing wrong with my uterus, because I bled really badly last night. So they said fine. And they took my blood pressure. I have low blood pressure. They took my blood pressure. My arm's pumping like crazy, and suddenly I feel psh! I said, oh gosh, I have to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, and I'm like bleeding like crazy. And I came out, and they gave me some more pads, and I kept bleeding. And they said, okay, don't go for your ultrasound, just go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said to my mum, oh, you're going to have to take her to the ER now, the emergency room. My mum's like, what do you mean? I'm holding 2 tiny babies. They're 12 days old. You want us to go to the ER now? And then it didn't really matter, because my khaki green skirt turned bright red. I literally bled out my guts. That's what it felt like. I thought that I was literally going to die there and then. I was bleeding like crazy. This poor cleaner, I watched her at the side, panicking when she looked how much blood was everywhere. And there was no chance my mum was taking me to the ER. They called an ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital. And my mum and the babies were left there. And I was taken off to the hospital at 12 days postpartum freaking out that I was going to die and never see my children again, never see my husband, who had gone back to work after like 4 weeks. And it was horrible. I went to the hospital. Oh, I called my husband. I said, you have to come to Tel Aviv now. He's like, I've just come to work for the first time in 4 weeks. So he took me. I was like, well, your wife's going to die, so you better come. So he came. He was like, oh my God. And he met my mum and the babies at the hospital. And the hospital wouldn't let me breastfeed my children. They said, no, she can't breastfeed. And I was like, I haven't had any medication, just let me be with my children. And they tried to admit me to the hospital, and I wouldn't let them at all. I was like, I'm not staying here. If you don't let me stay here with my babies, why would I stay here? I have to go home with my children because they're brand new and I need to look after them. And eventually, after 7 hours, they convinced me to let them go and me to stay. And they gave me 12 pints of blood, 12 minutes of blood, to replace everything that had gone on. And then I cried myself to sleep, and I think I pumped milk, and there was this woman next to me who was pregnant, and it was just horrible. I was in the gynae ward. And the next morning, Dr. McDreamy comes along and says to me, okay, let's take you to be scanned to check you. So I went off to his like manager, who was also a gynecologist, and they decided that they were going to do a DNC. So they took me off for a DNC. It was about 9:30 in the morning, and I went and had a DNC. And then Dr. McDreamy wakes me up in the recovery room, and it's different type of recovery room to the C-section recovery room, completely different. And he wakes me up. He's like, "Okay, everything is done now. You're not bleeding anymore." And I said to him, "Ata batuach?" And he's like, "I just told you there's no blood." I said, "Yesh li od dimum." And he's like, "What? No, I'm telling you there's no blood." I said, because I'd said, yes, there's lots more blood coming, because I could feel it, because it's my body, you know. And he looked down, and the whole of my bed was soaking wet with blood, and he like, his face went from normal colour to white, sheet white. And he said, "Okay, we're going to have to take you back into the theatre." And I'd had this Arab doctor, anaesthetist before, who's like very nice and sweet. And I had made them promise, if you make me have a DNC, you have to let me have my phone after. So I had my phone with me, and I was like messaging people, I think my friends and my mum. I think I was a bit delirious. And this woman comes along to give me my next anesthesia. And I said to her, "Don't lose my phone." She goes, "Well, I'll just give it to your next of kin outside." I said, "You can't give it to my next of kin outside, because my husband is in Modi'in with my babies and my mummy and my daughter." She's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I have newborn twin sons, and they're at home with my mother and my husband. There's no one outside for me." She's like, "Oh my God." So I start like for 10-15 minutes showing her my pictures of my newborn babies. I had thousands of them. It was a brand new phone. It was all babies. And then she said, "Okay, we're gonna put you to sleep now." I said, "Do not lose this phone. It's all my baby's pictures, and I haven't backed it up." She's like, "I promise." And she put me to sleep. And I remember it was 10 to 11 on the Monday morning, and I was put to sleep. And the next time I woke up was 8:30 on Thursday morning. So that's 3 days where I was asleep. And I found out late, and I woke up to these horrible doctors talking Hebrew that I was like a psycho and psychotic. And my dad walks in from the airport. That's what I saw as he walks in. My dad walks in from the airport. "Hi, Nicole." My dad walks in from the airport, and with a tiny suitcase, because he's just arrived from England, because apparently everyone thought I was going to die, and the whole of Modi'in was praying for me. My brother's community were praying for me. My mum's family and friends were praying for me, because I was meant to die. Apparently I'd had a pulmonary embolism, and just was crazy. And while I'd been in hospital, every 3 hours 2 women from my neighbourhood had come in to look after my babies throughout the night. So in a 24-hour period, there was 16 different people looking after my children. They were all amazing. But as the time went on, and I got sent photos and people saying how wonderful my babies were and what a blessing it was to look after my babies and stuff, I got more and more depressed, because like I had missed 3 days of my babies' lives. I went home that Thursday night miraculously, but 3 days of my baby's life I completely missed. And the next few months I had got flies on me. The next few months I had postpartum depression. It was really, really horrendous, and I was crazy. Like my milk supply completely reduced, so I would travel around the country getting milk donations from amazing people, and I was probably bonkers. Once I went somewhere near the airport and I ended up in the wrong part of the Stachin, and all I thought was, oh my god, I need to get home so I can give the milk I've just got to my other baby, because I had one baby with me. But like, I was bonkers. I was driving all over the place and I was in no fit state to be doing that. And then about a year later, I started doing more of my self-development stuff, and working on myself and getting out of the craziness that I had been in. And I did more and more of that. And then when the boys were about a year and a half, I started exercising. Someone got me to join a program which I was doing, and I start and then I stop and I start and I'd stop and I'd start and I'd stop. And then in May 2018, I was doing this eating program, which is really good, and I still use the principles, but they threw me out of the group because I use flies everywhere. They threw me out of the group because I use other products and not their products, because they have American vegan products and I'm not American vegan. I'm kosher English Israeli, so I was not going to be part of that. But like, I still use their workout program. I'm doing MM100 now and it's phenomenal. And in the October 2018 is when my life really changed. Because between the May and the October, I'd been yo-yoing with the same 5 kilos, but I was still very, very heavy. I was about 30 kilos less than my heaviest, but 45 kilos heavier than I am now. And I met a twin mummy to be, and she was like 1 week away from giving birth, and she had so much energy, and she was so vibrant and so happy, and a complete juxtaposition to where I had been 2 years earlier. And I was like, oh my god, why didn't I have a pregnancy like that? And then I looked over to the side, and she had these whole food capsules, the same whole food capsules that had helped me get pregnant with my twins, like that had balanced me and got my ovulation from 4 days before my mikveh to be on time. So it was amazing. And I was like, I have those. She goes, why aren't you using them? I said, I don't know why I'm not using them. But that day I went home and I started using them. And from that day on, I've used those pills every single day. And that was October, like now, like 2 years ago, like in this period, like the 18, 19, 20 time. And I've been using them for the last 2 years, and they've literally changed my life. Like within 6 weeks, they'd run out, and I started taking more, but I had so much more energy, and the workout programs I'd been doing, I did, and the eating I was doing, I continued, and my weight was going down, 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 down. And then in the December, I decided to do a squat challenge for 30 days, which I won, because I had decided that it was the time. I had two twin sons at home and a daughter, and I wanted to be able to keep up with them. So I just kept going and joining more and more challenges. And in the middle of the January, I started using the shakes as well, and doing my health program along with the principles I'd learned. And my weight just kept going down and down and down. And I've never felt so amazing. And it's not just it's not about the weight at all. It's about the health that I've gained. Like, I'm a completely different person now. It's like incredible. So when my husband says to me, oh, I don't care if you go and put the 75 kilos back on, like, it's not even possible for me to do that anymore, because like today I binged a little and I overate a bit, but I don't feel good when I do that. Like, I went for my run and I couldn't run like I ran yesterday morning. I did 5k, but I wasn't running for so much of the time. I was walking most of the time. So it's really like interesting. Like, people's outside opinions can say what they want, but it's up to me. It's up to me to know how I really want to live my life and how I really want to feel, and that's the message I want to give. Don't listen to outside forces. If you're happy the way you are, if you're big, if you're small, don't let other people judge you. I have friends that are really skinny and people are like always telling this wrong weight. It's no one else's business. It's your business, and it's your life and it's your journey. Hi, Mashura. It's your journey. It's no one else's journey. Hi, Sharon. It's no one else's journey. Hey, Kale. It's no one else's journey. Don't let anyone else put their opinions on you. It's your journey. If my husband can be happy with me big or little, I don't care. All I care is that he has love for me, and I'm happy just the way I am. And I'll be happy when I'm 10 kilos less as well. And I'll be happy right now. And that's what my message for today is. If you found my content of interest, of value, please go ahead and share it. Give me some love. Give me some hearts. I really appreciate you watching my story, and I hope it was of interest. And feel free to ask me any questions you want. I know people always ask me, but how did you get started? How did you start? And that's how I started. My journey didn't start a month ago, 3 years ago. It started many years ago, and it culminated with nearly dying in 2016, and coming out of that and seeing that I don't want other people to look after my children, and I want to be around for their children and their grandchildren, and that's what life's about, enjoying family and quality time and being there with one another. So I hope it was of value, and I'd love your feedback, and I hope you have a great evening. Bye for now.